Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something, I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hi, folks, and welcome into this bonus edition of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and as always, I really appreciate you pressing play and choosing to be a part of this bonus edition of the show. I've got a real treat in store for you this time around because on this episode, I get to share with you two incredible minds from different sides of the game. One is in more Hall of Fames than you can shake a stick at. He's been shaping how tour players, legends, and players like you and me swing the club for years. My other guest is shaping the very courses that we're out there playing on. He is a great designer, plus he's working with his own company, plus the Nicklaus Design team, and folks over at Southwest Greens. I'm so fortunate and grateful that I get to have both of these guys, that they are willing to take some time away from their incredibly busy schedules to share their stories and insights with us. So let me tell you who I'm talking about. First up, one of the most respected instructors in the history of our game, Jim McLean, is back with me. And as I've said before, he belongs on the Mount Rushmore of instructors. He's helped players at every level unlock their potential. Plus, he's got an instructor tree the size of the oak tree behind the clubhouse at Augusta National. This time, Jim and I start off talking about his recent induction into one of those Hall of Fames, the PGA of America. Amazingly, like I said, the 5th Hall of Fame that he's been inducted into. So I'm not exaggerating when I say he's an all-timer. From there, we talk a bit about one of his students, James Nicklaus. James won the Estera Golf Championship on the Korn Ferry Tour a few weeks back. Then we go back into Jim's college days playing at the University of Houston, where he played alongside our good friend John Mahaffey, plus some tremendous players. Guys like Bruce Litsky, Bobby Watkins, Bill Rogers, and Tom Jenkins. They won a national championship together in 1970. Jim's written all about it in his new book, The Houston Dynasty, Tales from Golf's Greatest Team, which you can go out and get right now on Amazon.com. In our conversation and the book as well, you're going to hear and read about how dominant their team was. Among many of the stories that you'll hear about that Cougars team was them facing off against other great legends in our game like Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite. He also tells us about what it was like playing for legendary coach Dave Williams. Then we move on from there to get into some of Jim's instructional philosophy, starting with technology versus digging it out of the dirt. Have we become too data-driven? You'll hear what Jim thinks about that. Plus, we also touch on his instructional school that he opened not that long ago in South Korea and what it was like when he went over there to open up that school and then took a visit to the DMZ looking across into North Korea. Jim is just, like I say, an all-time great and a wonderful friend and a great guest on this show. Can't thank him enough for everything that he's meant to me and this show. So stay tuned for that. You're going to really enjoy that conversation. Following him, golf course designer Michael Riley makes his Next on the Tee debut. I had the privilege of meeting Michael and his business partner Bob Hambrick at the PGA Merchandise Show. Michael works with the Nicklaus Design Company as well as his own design company, building courses around the world. He received a lot of acclaim for the Reunion Golf Club, which was named Best New Course in 2002 by Georgia Golf News. He also, like I say, works with Bob at Southwest Greens, designing fun and amazing greens that you could have in your own backyard. How many of us on our bucket list have something like having a green in our backyard? Well, guess what? Michael can do it for you. We also get into the great stories that he has about working with Mr. Nicklaus on several projects and what it was like traveling with Mr. Nicklaus on Air Bear as they went around the world building golf courses together. He breaks down the process and challenges of taking a piece of land and carving it out into a new course, taking a vision and turning it into something very, very special. We also hear how the big three, Nicklaus, Palmer, Player, continued to try to best one another when they were designing their golf courses. Of course, they wanted to have the best, right? They didn't want to be outdone by one another, so you'll hear a little bit about that as well. And great stuff with Michael. I really think you're going to enjoy him, getting to know him a little bit, hearing about his course designs and his stories and all the things that he has been a part of over the years. So, folks, I've got a great bonus show for you, full of amazing stories and great tips, just like we do every single week here on the show. Thank you again for pressing play and taking the journey with me. One thing before we get started, though, if you would please do me a huge favor, wherever you're listening to this right now, if you would take just a couple of seconds and subscribe to the show, it would go a long way towards getting Next on the Tee in front of more wonderful golf enthusiasts just like you. Okay, you know I like to get things started shouting out the wonderful people that help to sponsor this show, starting with my great friends over at the Trib. TribLive.com is the leading news website in Western Pennsylvania, with news around the clock, Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, and a podcast network, which is where you can find Next on the Tee. Bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trib Live app for free and stay up to date with the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond. I also want to talk about our friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a brand that I have loved my whole life and started drinking when I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. And because it's never too early for chocolate, their double chocolate Bock is back for the season, and it's the perfect companion for a cozy winter evening. Check out all of their wonderful beers and their gift shop by going online to pittsburghbrewing.com. In golf, fast isn't a nice to have, fast is a necessity, and speed off the tee is where it all starts. That was precisely the thinking behind the all-new QI4D family of drivers from TaylorMade, our fastest, most fittable drivers. Built to meet the demands of the world's best players like Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Nelly Korda, and the rest of Team TaylorMade. The QI4D lineup was engineered to unlock the 4 dimensions of speed, starting with a multi-material driver head with enhanced aerodynamic shaping, combined with a faster face and our revolutionary React shaft system. The TaylorMade QI4D drivers are ready to extract every bit of speed from every golfer's unique swing profile. Our industry-leading adjustability and fitting unlocks it all. Watch the full story of QI4D, our quest to build the fastest, most fittable drivers, and unlock your newfound speed at TaylorMadeGolf.com/findingfast. Boy, do I have a treat for you now, because next on the tee with me is one of the top instructors in the history of our game, and that is Jim McLean. Let me remind you a little bit about Jim's background. He's from the state of Washington and won the Washington Junior Championship twice. He won the Pacific Northwest Amateur 3 times, the Seattle Amateur, and the 4-state Amateur in Texarkana, Texas. Played his college golf at the University of Houston from 1968 to 1973, where he teamed up with some great legendary players like Bruce Litsky, Bobby Watkins, Bill Rogers, Tom Jenkins, and our good friend John Mahaffey. Jim helped the Cougars win the 1970 National Championship. He helped them finish second in 71, 72, and 73. He finished fourth at the 1971 U.S. Amateur Championship. He was named All-American in 1972, graduated with his degree in economics, and Jim is one of the few players to qualify for the U.S. Junior Am, the U.S. Amateur, which he did 4 times, the U.S. Open twice, and the U.S. Senior Open. He played in the 1972 Masters as an amateur, and he made the cut, finishing tied for 43rd. He won the Northwest Open and is a 3-time winner of the Pacific Northwest Amateur. Jim won the Pacific Coast Amateur Championship at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. As an instructor, he's won just about every award there is to win. He's been inducted into 6 Hall of Fames, including the World Golf Teachers Hall of Fame, and was a member of the 2025 PGA of America Hall of Fame as well. I consider him to be on the Mount Rushmore of golf instruction. He's got a wonderful new book that's about to come out, which we'll get into in just a minute. And it is a huge privilege to get to have him back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Jim, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's great to be here with you. Just walked in from doing a little teaching, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with you tonight.
I appreciate you. So first of all, Jim, huge congratulations on being inducted into the PGA of America's Hall of Fame last year. What an honor. Talk about getting that news.
Well, yeah, that was really nice, and it was a really nice evening to go in with some of my good friends who went in at the same time. Dennis Walters, for one, who we played college golf together, and then Dennis has done so many unbelievable things in his life. And then the chance to have quite a few of my friends and my wife at the induction ceremony in Texas was fun.
And Jim, I mean, like I mentioned in your intro, I mean, you're in the South Florida PGA Hall of Fame, the Metropolitan PGA Hall of Fame, the World Golf Teachers Hall of Fame, Miami Sports Hall of Fame, the Pacific Northwest Hall of Fame, and now the PGA of America. So my question is, as I've said to you before, how a resume like that is not getting you into the World Golf Hall of Fame is beyond me. How is it possible you're not in there?
Oh, I think it's pretty possible. That's a huge Hall of Fame to be in. I mean, I've been very lucky to get honored in a number of places here. So, I'm very happy with the way things have gone, Chris. Thank you very much, though.
Jim, when you joined me last summer after the U.S. Open, one of your students, Jack Nicklaus, opened that tournament with a great round of 69. He would go on to make the cut. He recently got his first win on tour at the Estera Golf Championship over on the Corn Ferry Tour. Talk about James and working with him.
Well, that's a really big win for him. His dream is to play on the PGA Tour. James went to Yale. He played on the football team his freshman year and then decided to move away from that and started playing golf at Yale. He made a 3.85 grade point average at Yale. So when he came to me about almost 4 years ago and said, I want to play the PGA Tour, I pretty much said, don't do this. You there's so many things you could do, James. You could be a top amateur. You're so talented in so many different things. He was in pre-med, but he was working with the Grayson Golf Company at this time, and super intelligent, very bright guy. But this was his dream, and he's worked really hard. He's improved. We started with no status on any tours, and he made it. We've had some amazing times. He shot 65 the last year to get on the Corn Ferry Tour, and then he was exempt starting this year. So then now to win early in the year, that puts him in a great shape to be one of the top 20 guys at the end of the year to receive their PGA Tour status, their card.
And Jim, like I mentioned in your intro, you have another piece of exciting news, something else that you hinted at the last time you were on the show. Your new book is out. It's titled The Houston Dynasty, Tales from College Golf's Greatest Team. Talk about that and what we're going to learn when we go out and get our copy of it.
Well, that's going to come out March 24th. I've got some copies now. It's a very different book for me. It's a fun book. It's stories of my time at the University of Houston when we all started off working or living in Baldwin House. Hard to believe, but we had 40 players on the team living together on the dormitory there, and 5 guys played, so it was a tremendous amount of competition. We had a great coach. Dave Williams won 17 NCAA championships, which is still a record. Be tough to beat that one. And then I played with some great players, but there's so many things that happened during my years at Houston, and I've kind of cataloged those in my mind through the years. We've had a lot of laughs with my old buddies when we get together. Anybody that went through the University of Houston or played there, even if they left, we all know what it was like to play for Coach Williams. And it was really a true dynasty from about 1957 to 1987, a 30-year span there, where they pretty much won or finished second in every NCAA championship.
So I want to get into some more details around all of that, but starting with life in the dorm with those guys, what was it like? Was it a typical college kid? Were you guys out partying and hanging out together doing the normal college kid stuff, or were you the guys out night putting?
No, it was a pretty normal, almost like a fraternity house. We were in this Baldwin house with the basketball team was also there. There was a great teams at Houston at that time. They lost in the semifinals of the NCAA the year before, so there was a lot going on. One of the first things I noticed was the dents in the doors when we came in. The guys hit one irons down the hallway, and you had to be really careful when you look both ways when you came out of your room, because there could be a sizzling one iron coming down. No one got killed when I was there by a ball, but we had a lot of those iron shots hit back and forth. And then you can just imagine, that's why I wrote the book. There's just so many stories, so many funny things that happened over the course of my time at Houston. Of course, we moved out of the dorms later on, but really a lot of the book takes place what happened in the dorm rooms, and there are so many great players there that I think I learned a little bit from all of them. It's just one story after another in this book, and I think they're pretty funny. So I can't wait I'll send you a book here. I just got some in.
I look forward to reading it. You mentioned great players that were on that team. And like I also said, one of your teammates is a wonderful friend of this show, and that's John Mahaffey. What was John like as a teammate and a competitor that you got to play alongside of?
Well, John Mahaffey is an absolute fierce competitor. I lived with John 1 year at school when we moved out of the dorm, and I learned more about him. He was a tremendous basketball player. He came from Kerrville, Texas. Not a big guy, wiry, tough as nails, and super competitive. John was kind of a maniacal guy, I mean, he was if he was drinking some beers, he would drink quite a few beers. Then he would not drink beers, and he was kind of famous for hitting 1,000 balls a day type of guy. He practiced like crazy. He changed his grips. One of the things that I never have seen anything like this before, but he would take off his grips and put them back on maybe 6 days a week out of the week, and put new grips on, put them back on, turn them off, and put them in different positions, different sizes, and just always messing with his golf clubs. His clubs were perfect. He could be really funny too. John told a lot of funny stories, did a lot of acting, and he was just an amazing guy because he could be really friendly, and then he could be like a sphinx, tough. He would not. He just was had the game face on, and a tremendous talent, tremendous player. He won the NCAA 1 year, or the year I lived with him. He won the NCAA individual championship.
You mentioned your head coach, Dave Williams. He's known as the father of college golf. You mentioned the number of national championships that he led the university to over his 36 seasons there, but talk about what it was like playing for him.
Well, Coach Williams was really, when we played for him, you didn't really think he knew that much. But then as I got older, I remembered a lot of things that I learned playing for Coach Williams, a lot of the motivation that he did for us. He would always be walking around saying Cougars, multiple times. And you thought he was a little bit shaky, when you do that. He would not remember a lot of the guys' names. We had the 40 guys when we're in a meeting, and he would call you by where you live, like Dallas or McMinnville or Atlanta, and and that would be your name, because he couldn't remember everybody's name, which was interesting. So yeah, you were a city or a state, even could be a state.
Jimmy, talk about 40 guys being there on the team. What was it like, A, trying to make the team, and then B, trying to get into the starting lineup?
Yeah, well, I got a 4-year scholarship coming to Houston, which was a almost never happening thing, and I got my butt kicked for sure when my first year. It was really tough. You think you're pretty good going in there, and you go down and you're playing with a lot of Texas boys there and a lot of upperclassmen, and I really needed to toughen up. I really needed to improve my game. When I left after my sophomore year, I went back and worked. I had a job too. My dad had a job for me when I got home, even though I was full scholarship and got $600 a month to live. So I really wasn't costing him too much. But I had to get a job, and but then I would work after the job, and then finally he let me stop. But I was 7 days a week, all day long. And then when I got back to school, I was a lot better, and I was competitive, and it was a lot more fun for me. But the first year was really tough.
Speaking of all the talent that you had, I mean, when you guys got off the team bus, regardless of where you were playing and who the other teams that were going to be a part of the tournament, I can't imagine you guys were intimidated by anybody. I mean, you looked around and all the great players that you had, well, you had to feel pretty confident going into each and every tournament.
That was a really big thing that Coach Williams really trained the team always, is to, look sharp, keep your head up, don't let them see any kind of weakness in you whatsoever. He preached that all the time. Of course, we were playing against the University of Texas that had 2 guys on that team, Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite, and 3 other guys that were really good too. So we had tremendous battles with the University of Texas, but we always thought we were better than them. And I think they thought they were better than us. But, it was pretty close over the years playing with them. Ben Crenshaw was just a savant as a young player. He was the best player in the country, and Tom Kite was very, very, very close to being as good as Ben. Crenshaw was Coach Williams would not let us talk about Ben Crenshaw. If he heard us talking about him, it would drive him insane. But he was great. Lanny Watkins was playing at Wake Forest at that time, and those were a couple of guys that were just super standout players that we had a lot of respect for. We had a lot of respect for Arizona State and USC and other teams that we played against from all over the country. It was a special time, to play college golf, where you could have big amount of players on your team. They didn't have the NCAA rules. We could play every day. The guys that I played with and myself, we were fixated on playing the PGA Tour. Not too many guys graduated. Mahaffey did. I graduated, but most of the guys had their eyes on the PGA Tour, and most of them made it to the PGA Tour as well.
And we'll be right back. You guys know what a fan I am of On Point Golf. Folks, get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only 3-dimensional ball marker with alignment technology and a removable coin. It is approved for use according to the rules of golf as defined by the USGA and the R&A. As we all know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your 3-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and lower your scores. Folks, with the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals and amateurs alike out there using them now, it's the #1 ball marker in golf that actually helps you lower your scores. Go online to onpointgolf.us, read about the science behind it, then put one in your bag and make more putts. I feel like it's the 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let On Point help yours as well? Again, onpointgolf.us. Check them out and get one in your bag today.
Sure, this is golf, but so is this. And this. And this is definitely golf. And so is this. Hey, that's not golf. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. And no matter what your golf is, you're gonna need a store. No, a superstore. A place to get fit for a new club and walk out with it the same day. A place to find the perfect fit. A place to do whatever this is, because this is golf, and this is Golf's Superstore.
Now let's get back to the show. So when you were playing in tournaments or even away from tournament play, did you ever spend any time talking to those guys, talking to Kite, talking to Crenshaw, talking to Lanny Watkins? Did you guys socialize at all?
Well, not too much. No, not when we were playing, but in the summertime, we were playing the U.S. amateur or some of the other big tournaments around the country. Yeah, you would see them, and we would have a lot of laughs about what was going on. And those guys became, both Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw, are very good friends of mine, and other guys. Howard Twitty, Lanny Watkins is a very good friend of mine, a great guy. My older son Matt went to Wake Forest on a scholarship up there, and Lanny's son went there. Yeah, so we kept this network of players that we played with in college that we'd see also during the summer, and then some of these guys went on to be, standout PGA Tour players. Johnny Mahaffey, of course, won the PGA, and came close to winning a couple of U.S. Opens. Bill Rogers won the British Open. Fuzzy Zeller was at school one year, my last year, when I came back to graduate. Fuzzy was there, and he won the Masters and the U.S. Open. So Tom Jenkins won. We had these other, just wonderful players. Bruce Litsky, of course, was just a genius player who won a U.S. Senior Open and 14 times on the PGA Tour. So yeah, just hanging out with all these guys. It was such an honor, such a great thing in my life. We all are, if you just play it on that team, we're always get together and we see each other from time to time, and we go right back to these stories. And that's how I wrote the book, from all these, just an incredible amount of things that happened during my time at Houston. And I wrote stories before. Homero Blancas shot 55 in a tournament. And of course, I wrote about Jim Nance and Freddie Couples and Blaine McAllister living together. Jim Nance wrote the forward for me in this book. So, Jim was a little bit after me, but if you went to Houston, we have that tie.
Yeah, so I was wondering about your relationship with Jim, because he was much later than you at Houston. How did you guys become friends?
Well, it's just the Houston tie. He lived with Freddie Couples, and Freddie came after me. We grew up really close to each other in Seattle, Washington. And then Freddie came to the University of Houston for a couple of years, and he lived with Jim and Blaine McAllister. So they were very close, those guys. And, we just met up through events that we would go back to the University of Houston with. And then, of course, Jim Nance became such a huge name in broadcasting. I was very close with Ken Venturi. So Venturi and Jim Nance did the Masters and many other the CBS tournaments forever. So I would just go sit with those guys, talk with them. And I think that was part of developing my friendship with Jim Nance.
You've talked about so many great players that were from your era and then came a little bit after you, and you've certainly been in and around the game for a long time. But did any of those guys reach out to you? Because as one of the great swing instructors in the history of our game, I'm sure those guys went through their times when they struggled or went through a drought or had some issues. Did they ever reach out to you for some help?
Well, Litsky and Rogers were very self-made guys. They're very close friends of mine. But the guys that I worked with the most would be Crenshaw and Kite. Not that much with Ben, but some with Ben, and a ton with Tom Kite. We really developed a working relationship where I worked with Tom for years, but mostly in 1992. We really started working in California early that year, and then we worked the whole year when he won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And on Monday night after the U.S. Open, I had dinner with just Ben Crenshaw, Tom Kite, and myself. And Tom was 42 years old at the time, so that was his first major championship. And you always hear those things of the conflict between Tom and Ben Crenshaw because growing up together and competing against each other. But they were very good friends, and we had a great dinner that night. And that was a big night for Tom to just relax a little bit after winning that U.S. Open title.
Yeah, that was his only major, as I recall. I mean, he won, I think it was 19 or so times out on the PGA Tour and was certainly in the top five in majors for a long time, 20 plus years, I believe he was finishing in the top five in majors. Did you ever talk to Tom about getting over the hump and then finally getting over that hump at the U.S. Open in 92?
Oh man, are you kidding? Of course, of course we did. You know, that was such a big thing uh, for him, and then winning that. Tom would always say all the tournaments were important until he won that U.S. Open, and then he kind of changed to saying, yeah, you know, when you're introduced the rest of your life, you're a U.S. Open champion, and it's just such a huge thing for him to win. I mean, I think most everybody in golf was happy for Kite to win that U.S. Open title because, as you said, he'd been so close and had some just huge disappointments. But you know, he's a guy that has a tremendous attitude, positive attitude, and you know, this is you know getting probably his last chance, you know, to win a major, and he shot a great last round at Pebble Beach and beat Colin Montgomery there, and man, it was really exciting. We had worked so hard. I was watching it on television, and he had a 2-shot lead playing the last hole at Pebble Beach. And you know, we were still using wooden clubs and a Balata ball back then. This is 1992, so the ball could curve a lot more than it does today. And I was hoping he would maybe hit an iron off the tee, but he hit driver, and it's out of bounds to the right and the Pacific Ocean to the left. And he hit a perfect drive down there and made a par, 1 by 2. But I left the room, you know, when he hit when he saw him pull out the driver. I was more nervous than him.
You know, I always rooted hard for Tom, particularly at Augusta. I mean, the guy finished in the top 5 9 times. I was always hoping that eventually he would get over the top. I mean, Jack Nicklaus was my golf hero. I certainly wasn't rooting for Tom in 86. But outside of that, I was rooting for him, you know, most of those times to kind of get over that top. I felt like Augusta was both great and cruel to him at the same time.
Yeah, he had a couple of real chances to win there. He was so close with a putt that could have gone in even at the last hole to get into a playoff there. But yeah, I was able to go to a lot of tournaments with Tom. You know, he's a very good friend. Just special. Those were all special times.
You've also got another book that's going to come out a little bit later on this spring in April or May, X Factor 2. Talk about what we can look forward to when that book comes out.
Well, I wrote the X Factor first articles 35 years ago, and then I did quite a few other things in magazines. I did DVDs, and I wrote a book in 1996. So that came out in 1976, so exactly 30 years ago. I thought it was time to do an upgrade, an up look at what's happened in those 30 years. We have so much technology, so many new things that have happened. So I tried to put it all together of what I've seen in these last years and how it applies to the X Factor, which is the differential between your shoulders and your hips, and then such an important thing was the back cover of the X Factor book was the change of direction, how you increase the X Factor in the downswing, how you start by moving the pelvis while the shoulders are still going back, which is a springboard, for your move into the shot. So there's been a lot more done now. We've got force plates. There wasn't biomechanics back then. So, I've been able to use gears and smart to move force plates, and we've learned more data and more interesting things that show us exactly what's happening in the golf swing, or close to exactly what's happening in the golf swing.
Jim, talking about technology, and I've talked with several of your peers about this, and even coming off of the PGA merchandise show, I spent some time with the guys there at TrackMan, and they're telling me they're coming out with 9 new data points this year. I'm just thinking, how much more technology do we need? How many more data points can we possibly have before it just starts to feel like it's all noise?
Yeah, you have to be careful. That's for sure. We put in the new TrackMan unit, the IO unit, which does biomechanics, which is just absolutely incredible. Um, but certainly with all of these parameters or data points, as you call them, you have a real possibility of overteaching and paralysis through analysis. So I think there's always going to be the need for a teacher who has good knowledge of how the body moves and how we teach the game, and how you spoon feed the information out, not just blast out all this information that's way too complicated for most people to try and process.
You have produced so many great instructors. We talk about all the time, like in football, head coaches that have coaching trees. I mean, your tree is like an orchard from the ones that have come through your teaching schools. Talk about the teachers that you've had an opportunity to be around, influence, and produce over the years.
Yeah, I know I'm going to leave people out. It's very, very tough on that. Daryl Kestner up in now at Deepdale, one of the great jobs in the country, and Jeff Warren, Rick Hartman, just passed away, was at the Atlantic Club. Jeff Warren's at the Bridge. Sam Wiley has got the best job in Connecticut at Weburn. Mario Guerrera at Quaker Ridge. Nick Yan at Century. Christopher Tolson at Sunningdale. I'm going to leave out Jason Carbone. He was at the Canterbury in Cleveland. Devin Bonebreak is a star on the Golf Channel now. Shoot, both of my boys are doing good. One at Shinnecock and one at Fisher's Island. I'm going to leave out a ton of people. I hope there's a few of them, but we've got over 250 right now that are at really nice places as a director of instruction or the director of golf.
And you've got golf schools in places all over the world. Remind everybody how and where they can attend one of your golf schools.
Well, we have two down here in Miami, one at the beautiful Miami Beach down South Beach, and one where my headquarters is at the Biltmore. I have a school at Mayacoba in Mexico, just outside of Cancun, one in Madrid at Banco Santander, and one in Seoul, South Korea, and one at Red Ledges just outside of Park City, Utah. It's called Heber City, and it's a spectacular place too.
As I recall from your Instagram page, there's a picture of you at the DMZ right down there at South Korea. What was that experience like?
Well, you're right. That was my wife and I made the trip up to see the line of demarcation between North Korea and South Korea. And it gets your attention for sure. And, the Korean War was fought there and we lost a lot of soldiers in that battle. And a guy like Ted Williams flew for 2.5 years missions over there. And, golly, that was a real thing to go in and look at the history of Korea and how that was a brutal war. And then to go into Seoul, South Korea and see this unbelievable city, just magnificent, beautiful city that's been built over, since 1953. So it's a very new place. It was a great trip, I can tell you that.
Jim, before I let you go, remind our listeners again, how can they go out and when can they go get the new book, The Houston Dynasty Tales from College Golf's Greatest Team? When is that book going to become available and how can they get it?
Well, you can pre-order the book now on Amazon or there's other sites I've seen where you can order the book, but definitely on Amazon. And then it'll be out on March 24th. We did an audio book, and Jim Nance is going to do the first part of that audio book, and I did a little part already. That's also going to come out on March 24th, and then it'll also be an online book. So it'll be you can actually get the book or do the online book or the audio book. But I sure appreciate you letting me come on and talk about it.
Absolutely. How can our listeners stay up to date with you on social media as well?
McLean Golf on Instagram and same thing on X and Facebook. That's mainly where I think we're doing a little bit now on some of the other platforms, but that's mostly what I do.
Well, Jim, it's always a huge privilege to get to spend time with you. I hope we get this opportunity again soon, maybe around the time that X Factor 2 comes out, because each and every time you're a part of the show, A, I learn a lot, and B, it's interesting to hear all the things that you're doing and you've been a part of. You're a legend in this game, and I can't thank you enough for coming back and being a part of the show.
Well, I appreciate you, Chris. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You
Bye.
too. Take care, Jim. That is the great Jim McLean, folks. You got, again, how many Hall of Fames? I didn't even count. It's too many to count, but I'm telling you, he should be in the World Golf Hall of Fame. I mean, what else could he have to do? What more is there left to prove for how much he has meant to this game, given back to this game, and been a part of this game? Again, part of a national champion down there at Houston. So many great players that he got to be a part of and to be around. And like I say, with John Mahaffey, you know how much John Mahaffey means to me, and Jim means to me as well. Those two guys, very dear, very special to me, and had great careers in college and then post-college. Right? He talked about how fierce a competitor John Mahaffey was. Won a major. Of course he was a fierce competitor. Won the Players, by the way, as well. Jim, for all the things that he achieved in his amateur career, how many amateur titles he won, and then going on to being, like I say, a guy who needs to be on the Mount Rushmore of golf instructors. He has achieved so much, influenced so many, and had so many great players that have been his students and that he has been around. Look, go find one of his golf schools. I think they're 3 to 5 days long, and he's got them, like you say, all over the world, a couple down there in Miami. Go make your game be as good as it possibly can by signing up and being a part of one of his golf schools. And then I can't wait to read this book. I mean, he talks about how it's going to be funny. I can't wait to read about some of the shenanigans that they're hitting 1-irons down the hall. You can only imagine some of the other shenanigans that they were a part of. So I can't wait to read the book and see all those other things. And then, like I say, when X Factor 2 comes out a little bit later on this spring, hopefully we get Jim back a part of the show and he can tell us more about all of that as well. Coming up next is a guy who is a wonderful golf course designer and has dozens of unbelievably great stories to share with us, and that is Michael Riley. Before I get to have Michael as part of the show, let me remind you about the great things going on up at Macklemore, because this year, get ready to experience a game like never before at the Keep, the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course at Macklemore. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round here is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore. The Keep is open and it's waiting for you. And folks, if you haven't tried 2-under yet, you really need to. Why? Well, from the first tee to the clubhouse, 2-under's Joey Pouch is going to keep you comfortable and locked in all round or all day. Build your own bundle by going online to 2-under, that's the number 2, UNDR.com, and save up to 20%. Okay, now making his next On the Tee debut with me is Michael Riley. I had the privilege of spending some time with Michael at the PGA Merchandise Show. He currently works with Southwest Greens, Nicklaus Design, and his own design company. Going back to his college days, he earned his degree in horticulture at Clemson. He played a bit out on the Florida Mini Tour before he actually was offered an opportunity to go to work with Mr. Nicklaus at Nicklaus Design. One of the early projects he worked on there was at the Keeley course over in Kauai, which was named Best New Resort Course by Golf Digest in 1989. From there, he went on to work with Bob Cupp and was involved in the design of Council Fire, which is a fantastic course up in Chattanooga. In 1992, he started his own design company. His design at the Reunion Golf Club was voted Best New Course by Georgia Golf News in 2002. He's regained his amateur playing status, one of the best here in the state of Georgia. He finished runner-up at the Georgia Mid-Am. He's qualified for the U.S. Mid-Am twice, and he won the Anderson Memorial Tournament up at Wingfoot. And folks, I couldn't be more excited that I get to spend some more time with him this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Michael, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor, and really looking forward to discussing some golf with you. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And Michael, we have so much to get into about your amazing career to this point. But I want to start off by going back to your college days because I'm curious, what got you excited about getting into horticulture and then obviously on the path to golf course design?
Well, it was something that I always wanted to do, golf course design, ever since I was, I guess, about 14. I grew up in New Jersey at the foot of Somerset Hills in Bernardsville, and top 100 golf course designed by Tillinghast. So I got indoctrinated to some great golf at an early age. My brother was caddying up there. I turned 14. You could get your working papers when you were 14. So I started caddying up there and just absolutely fell in love with the game. And I always liked fooling around the house with plants and doing designs and that type of thing. So I said, that's a great way to combine the two loves is golf and landscaping. So I knew about golf course design, I think just from having grown up caddying at Somerset Hills and Tillinghast's name being mentioned constantly out there. So, and I knew about Robert Trent Jones being nearby in Montclair. And of course, he was one of the, if not the leading architect at the time when I was growing up. So knew it was a profession and knew I wanted to get into it and just didn't know how I was going to get into it, what the path was to make your way into that business. So I originally applied to 3 schools, Virginia Tech, NC State, and Clemson for architecture, because I thought I wanted to be an architect and do it that way. And then Clemson said, well, you can come for anything but architecture. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I didn't have the math scores that needed to be in architecture. But so I went there and just signed up for some engineering class there and major, not knowing really what to do, and moved on to a hall in the dorms, and one of the guys was drawing landscape plans. And I said, hey, I want to do that. What are you in? And he said, I'm in horticulture. So the next day I switched into horticulture and got my degree in horticulture because I had the most classes that I could get to learn how to draw plans and learn about grasses and agronomy and drawing and presentations and all of that stuff. So I graduated with a degree in horticulture, and then I was going to go to get my master's in landscape architecture at Georgia. But they said I had to come for 3 years and not 2. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be further in debt with school loans, and I'm probably going to start with a shovel in my hand. So I might as well just go start with a shovel in my hand right now. So once I graduated, I got a job working in Florida and in New York. It was a very interesting story that my dad was sitting at a bar in our hometown and sat down next to a guy and introduced himself, and he said, hi, I'm Mike Riley. And my dad said, oh, you're the other Mike Riley. And he said, we used to get phone calls at night saying, hey, tell Mike there's a party at so-and-so's house. And my father would say, well, that's great, but he's 10 years old and he's in bed. So he finally met the other Mike Riley, and he said, well, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm going to St. Andrew's Golf Club in Hastings-on-the-Hudson, New York, to be the general manager. And he said, Jack Nicklaus is going to redo the golf course. And my father said, oh, my son really wants to get into golf course design. And so the other Mike Riley said, well, have him come up to the pro shop. I think they're hiring in the pro shop, and maybe that's a way to get in front of people and then meet some people and do it that way. So I went up there, I interviewed with the pro. He said, let's go out and play. And it was kind of an out of body experience. It was sort of like fate that it was meant to be, because no matter what I did, I could have swung left-handed or with my eyes closed, the ball was going to go straight down the middle and 300 yards. So the pro was duly impressed and hired me. And then I got to meet the Nicklaus people, and they didn't have an opening at the time. So I went to Florida during the wintertime to work at Frenchman's Creek in North Palm Beach, Florida, as a cart person. And then I would go back to New York. And then the next summer, I was standing there in the pro shop, and Phil Esposito, the famous hockey player, he was a member at the club, and he came in one day and said, "What are you going to do this winter?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to go play golf in Florida." And he said, "Okay, I'll get some guys and we'll send you down there." So I said,
Wow.
"Well, I guess I'm turning pro, and I'm going to go play the mini tours." So I did that for a while. It was really just biding my time, trying to get into golf course design with Nicklaus, and waiting for the opportunity that they would need somebody. And that's where I met Bob Cupp up in St. Andrews, and became friends with him, and stayed in contact with him, and was hoping that a position would open up, because you always think you want to be on tour and play, and I mean, every kid wants to, but then when you go down to the mini tour and you see the competition down there, and then a funny story, I was playing with Dick Mast, who was a legend on the mini tour, and after 14 holes of watching him hit it down the middle of the fairway, hit it to 10 feet, lip out or make it, lip out or make it, lip out or make it. And I finally said, "Dick," I said, "what are you doing out here?" And he said, "Mike, those guys on tour are really good." I said, "Well, if we can't beat you, and you can't compete with them, what are we doing out here?" So there is, you just see, there's a handful of guys out there, but you can never tell when you're playing. Because I got paired with Kenny Perry at the beginning of every series of tournaments because of our alphabetical order of our last names. And at that point, he was a good player, but he wasn't the Kenny Perry that we saw on tour. And there were guys way better than him at that time that you would say, "Oh, they're going to make it on tour." But it was always kind of funny, because the guys who you thought were can't misses didn't make it. And the other guys who you thought, well, they're a nice player, but they're not as good as that guy, they would make it. So you can never tell with the game of golf, because, as you well know, it's what happens between your ears on how you can handle
Yes.
pressure and recovery, and how you handle all of the stuff that you have to deal with, not just be able to hit a ball, a 5-iron on the driving range with no pressure on you, that anybody can look good doing that, especially down there amongst all those good players. Played that for one winter, and as I said, I wasn't going to make a career out of it at that point. So I thought, I'm just going to bide my time until Nicklaus had a position. Finally, they did. So I got to become a site guy with them, which meant that you went to the job went to the project at the beginning of the job, and stayed there for the entire length of the construction, and then you went to the next job, and then to the next job. So I did that for a few years, and then I became a designer, which then I was flying over to Japan and handling other projects with him, numerous projects. Instead of just one project, I'd be handling 5 or 6 or 7 projects at a time, either through design and construction, or finishing up and routings and doing all of that type of stuff. So as I joke, I said it was all because of my father's love of Budweiser that I got to have a career in golf course design, because without that happening, I don't know if I would be in design, and maybe I would have got in some other way and figured out how to do it, or gone on a construction crew, or luckily, might have met somebody else or got in there. But, he was sitting there at the bar at the right time, next to the right guy. And I mean, it just, all the stars aligned. So it's just to me, it's a great story. And I just joke that it's all because of Budweiser.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
So when was the first time you actually met Mr. Nicklaus?
Well, I did meet him up at St. Andrews. He came up for a visit to look at the golf course, and he was out there with an entourage of, I don't know, 10 people, and then people from the club, and of course I was working in the pro shop, and the pro said, "Okay, you stay here," as he went out there to meet with, be part of the group out there. So I'm supposed to be in the pro shop, and of course nothing's really happening that day. So I'm sort of inching my way to the front door, and they're standing, 20 feet away from me in a group of 20 or 30 people. And of course, I'm curious, so I just want to be part of the group. And I'm standing at the door, and then I'm sort of inching my way just to kind of be on the outskirts of everybody, just to kind of have an ear of see what's going on. And of course, Jack sees me inching up kind of to be a part of the group. And the way Jack is, he's gonna make you a part of the group. So he stops what he says and comes over and introduces himself. And, that's the last thing I wanted. I just wanted to be, hiding behind somebody just to kind of hear what he was saying. And, but that's how Jack was. I mean, he would stop what he's doing and introduce himself. And I said, yes, I know who you are, and you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing right now. Hopefully I'm not in trouble. But that was the first time. And then one other time I saw him in Florida down there at Frenchman's Creek, because that's where he used to practice when he was on tour, still playing then. So he would come, and we would, of course, same type of thing. Hey, you guys aren't supposed to be, leave Mr. Nicklaus alone. He's in the back hitting golf balls. And as a cart guy, we always found a way to, I think we have to ride back there for some reason and try and watch him hit golf balls. But Raymond Floyd would be there, or Gary Player, or, some other guys would show up, but it was always great. But, as same type situation is, they're telling you what not to do, and you're too excited or too interested in how they hit a golf ball, and just to watch how it sounds or hear how it sounds and watch them and just be close to them. And we always figured out a way we have to drive back there and ask a stupid question to somebody just so we could hang out there for 5 minutes and watch them hit golf balls. But so then we obviously went to work for him, and it was a great opportunity, and learned a lot. And it was just great being around him, because he's so gracious, and not, you see the Jack Nicklaus on TV winning majors, and then you find yourself face to face with him, and he's just a normal person. But you forget sometimes that he is normal, because you're used to being around him, either talking about design, or just being on the plane with him, or being out to dinner with him, or whatever. I said, as you're flying to Japan, you're looking at plans, or he's might be giving you a hard time, or joking with you, or needling you, or something like that. And then you land, and there's 500 people there bowing to him. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot who you were for a second there, because you were needling me and making fun of me, and just being like we all would, and just sitting on a plane talking. And you kind of forget that he was who he is, until you go there and people are bowing to him, and just treat him like a god over there. So it was interesting to see the difference in how my aunt lived in Florida at the time, and she said, oh, I would faint if I ever met him. And I'm saying, oh, it's just Jack. He comes into the office in shorts and says, hey, you got any questions for me? And it's like, no, I'm good, or call me on the phone, or do whatever. To us, he was just Jack. But everybody else, he's an icon in the game, which he is. But when you work for him, you don't see it, because you see it on a regular basis.
So on some of those long plane rides, yes, I'm sure you're talking design and thinking about the course that you're about to go out there, and the land you're going to visit, and how that's going to flow, and all of those sorts of things. But I got to imagine there's a lot of hours up there on Air Bear. Did you guys talk stories? Did he tell you about things like, the 75 Masters, or the 86 Masters, or winning the 80 Open and the Jack is back? I mean, all those sort of iconic moments that he lived. Did you get into things like that, or was it all golf course design?
Most of it was golf course design. I mean, sometimes I didn't want to pick his brain too much on it, that, if we had time, but there was normally, 5, 6 people on the plane. So, we're either looking at routings, or he's talking about other business, or he's signing autographs on pictures, or that type of thing. But, there'd be a couple of times. I remember one time we got off the plane at Palm Beach, and he was, I guess he might have played somewhere, or it might have been an opening or whatever, and they took his clubs off, and he took a club out of the bag, and he held the club out a foot in front of him, and then swung back. And he said, I always wanted to start my golf swing like this. And I thought, boy, that's interesting. That instead of starting at the ball, Mo Norman started a foot behind the ball. Jack wanted to start a foot in front of the ball and then swing back. He never did because, maybe people would say, well, that's ridiculous what you're doing. But seeing him swing the club there as a practice swing and saying, I always wanted to start my swing like this. But I would ask him sometimes because I had the chance to play with him a couple of times, and one time again, getting off the plane one time and waiting for the luggage to come off the plane. I said, Jack, how do you stop crossing the line? And he just looked at me and said, Bobby Jones crossed the line. And I said, I'm thinking, well, that wasn't the answer I was looking for. I was looking for some concrete, here, do this. But that was Jack, again, going back to how he thinks. And I'm thinking, well, why would he say that? And then I finally figured it out, was basically saying it doesn't matter. One of the best players ever to play the game, and his idol crossed the line at the top of his backswing. So that's his way of saying, why are you thinking about that? You don't need to be thinking about why you crossed the line. But I thought that was interesting on how he would answer a question, because I think he's brilliant. His memory is off the charts. We were watching Gary play a college tournament one time, I think in Texas, and a guy walked up to him, and Jack said hello to him and started talking to him. And then he turned to me and he said, Mike, this is so-and-so. I played him in the third round of the 1961 U.S. Amateur at so-and-so club, and I beat him, whatever it was, 2-1 on the 18th hole after sinking a putt. And, that was in 1989. And I'm thinking, how do you remember that stuff? Who that guy was that you beat in the third round that just came up to you in Texas. It was fascinating. But another story is, because we could call him, one time I called him up at the house and said, hey, Jack, I need to talk to you about the third green of the C9 of this golf course we were doing in Japan that he had been to once. And so he said, okay. And there was silence. And I said, it's that dog leg right, uphill, bunker on the right. And then more silence. And then I say, it's got that two-tiered green with the big tree behind it and a drop off on the right. And he says, shut up, damn it. I'm trying to get it. And I said, oh, okay. So, another few seconds, he goes, okay, I got it. And then from then on, he knew everything about it. And that was the third green on the C9 of one golf course in Japan out of probably 30 we were doing at the time around the world that he had been to once. And that's how good his memory was.
Wow.
Was that he could remember everything about that green once he found it in his mind. And he was getting upset that I was trying to help him find it in his mind by giving him clues. But I think that just made him the golfer that he was, because his mind was second to none. I think much like Tiger, they just think differently and just have a unbelievable mind for the game and what they can recall and bring up and say, okay, I hit a great 9-iron back then. This is the same shot. Just do the same thing. Whether us mere mortals, we don't do that.
Right. So let's take that a step further, though, Mike. What was it like getting to watch him lay out a course? Decide how the hole should route, how to use the topography. To me, it must be like watching an artist create a fantastic painting. Am I over romanticizing that?
No, it's a lot like that. And Jack was very involved. Some people ask me, how involved was he? Because, some guys are not that involved. They may lend their name to the project, or they may come out for the grand opening and then maybe one time during construction and they come back to play the golf course. But Jack said, my name's on the course. So who's designing this course, Mike, you or me? And I would say, well, you are, Jack, not me. So everything you see on the golf course is Jack. How deep the bunker is, what the green shape is, what the elevations are. But he wouldn't do much on paper. He would only do it on site when we got there. Like if I'm laying out a golf course, I would be looking at, okay, how's this hole is going to go to the right, and then we're going to have this strategy on it, and then the next hole we're going to have this strategy, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. But Jack was doing so much at that time, but he would devote himself. When he showed up on site is when he would tell us what he wanted. Once he saw the golf course in the dirt and how it looked to him from his eye, he wouldn't do much on paper, but he would do it in the field and then sketch it as we're in the field and tell us what he wanted to see and what to do. So, but he was very good at routings and everything because he was, a very smart guy and very astute and could figure things out quickly. So if we had a piece of property, I would route the golf course and then I would show him the routing, and then he would look at it and say, well, what if we do this? Well, what if we do this? Or why don't we do this? Or why don't we change this? Or it's always good. As a lone designer, you're making all the decisions yourself and you don't bounce off ideas to other people. But if you have a group of people there and I do it one way and he looks at it and says, why did you do that? Why don't you go this way? And then you think, oh, yeah, why didn't I go that way? Maybe we should go that way. So having a different set of eyes on it was always helpful. And then, of course, he would have the final say so, but he would be reviewing it and looking at it. And then, as I said, he would approve the routings and we would go over that and look at the routings. But then we would just kind of set up the golf course elevation wise, meaning here's a tee, kind of rough the fairway in and kind of just rough the green in as a sort of a pad there. And then he would come and say, okay, put fairway bunkers here and put a bunker here and put 2 bunkers here and make the green do this and then do this. And then we would then shape that and create that and then have him come back and look at it and then either make more adjustments or approve it to go to the next step. So he was always available, when we're either shaping it or finishing the greens or doing everything. Every step he approved, and everything that was done on a golf course, he approved and looked at and was in charge of ultimately. So there was nothing like I didn't throw a bunker out there and, wanted to see if he would leave it in or take it out or what he thought about it. It was like, no, we did what he wanted to do on the golf course and how he saw it when he was there for that dedicated time of 5 or 6 hours walking around the golf course.
And we'll be right back. Golf season is back. We've got the Masters coming up and the U.S. Open is out there on the horizon. And Sunday Swagger just made sure you're going to be ready. Their new spring collection just dropped. They've got 60 bold, performance-driven styles for men, women, and youth. And if all of that isn't enough, well, they just linked up with Pennzoil and Team Penske for a race-inspired collection that brings serious trackside energy to the fairways. With styles for men, women, and youth, you're guaranteed to turn heads and spark conversation when you wear Sunday Swagger. Visit SundaySwagger.com. Join the Sunday Club for exclusive drops and member benefits. And folks, Sunday Swagger is going to give you what? Polos with personality. Again, check them out online, SundaySwagger.com. And folks, Squares Golf, best golf shoes on the planet by far. It's not a gimmick. It's not marketing. It's science. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear from 6-time major champion Sir Nick Faldo.
So Nick here. What if there was a golf shoe embraced by hundreds of thousands of golfers, celebrated for its stability, comfort and distance? What if this shoe earned the title of most technologically advanced golf shoe by Sports Illustrated? And what if the company behind that shoe spent the last year perfecting a brand new category of golf footwear? Well, the what if is here. Introducing the all-new Pro S2 LT by Squares, a new class all of its own, the perfect blend of lightweight comfort and stable performance. You'll notice the difference. Change your shoes, change your game. Squares.
Now back to the show. Michael, we all know about the big three, Mr. Nicklaus, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Player, and the tremendous rivalry that they had on the golf course. But post their careers, they all went off and did course design. Did Mr. Nicklaus talk about, did that rivalry continue on post their playing careers to want to beat each other's brains out, be better course designers than the other? I'm very familiar with the King and the Bear, played that a few times, and Mr. Palmer, Mr. Nicklaus co-designing that golf course. But did you get a sense that their rivalry continued on in the course design world as well?
Not up front, but subtly, I think. I mean, they're all competitors. So that didn't go away when they started designing golf courses. So, and I only say that from the example of, I knew when I started with Nicklaus that we started using Toro equipment on the golf course. I think on my first one that I was involved with. And then Palmer signed a deal with Toro to be their spokesperson. And we immediately were now a Rainbird company and a Jacobson mower company endorser. So if that answers your question, and I wasn't a part of it, but I heard one time that they were doing the golf course together. I think it might have been at the Hall of Fame in Florida.
Yeah, the King and the Bear?
Yes. And they were both there at the same time. And so I think Jack saw Arnie, the next morning or whatever. And Jack said, "Oh, Arnie, I didn't know you were here." And Arnie said, "Yeah, I came in last night." And Jack said, "Oh, I didn't see your plane at all." It kind of, the little needle, like his plane smaller than my plane type of thing. Because I think Arnie flew Learjets and Jack flew G4s or whatever, right, which the Lear is going to be a little smaller but faster, I think. And they always had the competition, but they always wanted to beat Jack. They both admit it. They both wanted to beat each other's brains in, and sometimes that got in the way of their golf. Is that because they were so competitive that they wanted to beat each other so bad that they forgot what they were really doing. But no, it was funny that, we were Toro, and then all of a sudden we're no longer Toro. We're Rainbow. Because, Jack wasn't going to endorse Toro if all of a sudden they've got to deal with Palmer, because Palmer is getting paid money, so if Jack's helping Toro, that's helping Arnold. So pretty funny.
It is. Let's switch gears a little bit, because you've done some great design work on your own. You've had a huge success with the work you did designing the Reunion Club. Was that the first solo design that you did?
No, actually, my first one was, it's called Iron Horse now, but the first one was Crooked Creek up in Alpharetta here in Georgia. So that was really the first standalone golf course that I had done. And it was pretty daunting because up to that point, you're always having somebody else there. And then all of a sudden, now it's just you, and you got to make all the decisions, which, with Jack, he's making the decisions and you're just implementing those decisions. And, we would talk about why'd you put a bunker there, and why'd you do this, and why you doing that. And, he would explain the stuff of how he was thinking about how he saw the golf course. But he was also, the golf was what seemed like easy for him, so hitting a high fading 2-iron from 200 yards, and stopping it on a dime was routine for him. So, that's how he saw the golf course, as opposed to, I don't think he played a lot with 25 handicappers or 30 handicappers or, everybody who plays the game of golf. So if you stood there for 3 hours on a golf course and watched everybody play, we'd probably design differently, because, if you play the game well, it seems fairly easy, or you can pull off the shots. But as I found, as I've gotten older, and golf becomes a lot harder than when I was 25, because your body's different. And now all of a sudden the shots, now I understand what everybody else sort of feels when, you're required to hit a shot, but you just don't have that shot anymore, or getting the ball up in the air, or hitting a solid shot, or doing whatever. But thankfully, everybody finds the game challenging, so they still pursue it and persevere and try to perfect playing golf, which is impossible. But so that Crooked Creek was the first one, and that's when it kind of hits you that, hey, now it's all my calls out there on the golf course, and having to figure out what to do and how to make it interesting and make it challenging for the good players, yet playable for everybody else, which is always the hardest thing to do, is how do you make it fun for every level of golfer, not just the good players, but you want everybody to enjoy it and appreciate it and think that it's a fair test of the game, and they enjoy it mostly, is what you really want.
Like I mentioned in your intro, Reunion won Best New Design back in 2002 by Georgia Golf News. That had to be amazing when that phone call came through letting you know that you were about to win that award. Right.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Yeah. And that was a interesting piece of property too, because that was a John Whelan development golf course, and they wanted not an easy site by any means, and they didn't want to wait on permitting to pipe a lot of the creeks. So I think they could have, without getting a national permit, they could have about 300 feet of pipe, and they needed some for road crossing. So all I got was, I think, 200 or 230 feet that I used all on one hole, the 18th hole, on one creek, and the rest of the time we had to leave the creeks open. So there were a lot of hurdles to jump there. The county didn't want us to put a lot of pipes into the main creek that went down the center of the property, and they said you can put one pipe per hole into the creek. So I said, okay, well, then I had to dig out these almost small pond-like features that when it rained would fill up with water, but when dry would, or when it wasn't raining, they would be dry, but they were almost like retention basins that I would take all the pipe from the golf holes, from the greens, the bunkers, the fairway, all take it into that one small depressed pond-like area, and then pipe that into the creek. And it turned out well, but a lot of people, I read some of the comments when it first opened, they said, I don't understand why all these little ponds are all over the place. And you want to type in there, well, because without it, we wouldn't have the golf course approved, because this is what the county said we could do. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scene that happen throughout it. I know if you play it, all you can do is say, well, I looked at the golf course and I like it, or I don't like it, or I don't understand why you did this. But trying to get to that point is always a challenge. And then we had rock issues, and as I said, the pipe issues and routing issues and permit issues. But after all that's said and done, then for them to say, hey, this is one of the best golf courses that was built was a real honor from that standpoint. Because when you're going through it, you think, well, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome, but obviously they recognized how good it was with the product that we put out there.
Let's take that challenge piece a little bit further, Michael, because for anybody that has ever tried to get a house built or a building built for their business or whatever it is, everybody knows the challenges of trying to get the city's approval, the county's approval, the state's approval, and everything that goes along with trying to get all the required permits and the length of time and the back and forth that goes through. Talk about the challenges that you go through with putting a golf course in, because it's not just as simple as deciding the piece of land and then laying down sod and growing grass.
Right. Yeah. We typically would have meetings in the beginning to find out, yes, what will be allowed and what won't be allowed before you go through all the design and say, hey, this is what I want. And then you go for approvals and they say, well, no, you can't do that at all. you have to stay this far away from the creeks. And I know even there at Reunion, they wanted us to, they have buffers along the creeks. And typically we would remove some of the trees and take them out of there. Well, they wanted us just to cut them and then pull them out. They didn't want to have any equipment within the buffer. Even building bridges across them was a challenge. So there's always a lot of stipulations that you have to find out up front. And sometimes you can, like there at Reunion, they said 1 pipe per hole. And I said, well, the par fives are 550 yards long. It's kind of hard to have 1 pipe on a par 5 into the creek. And they said, okay, you can have 2. So I put 1 at the tee area and 1 at the green area. So it was that back and forth, is to say, they're not totally against having the development or build the golf course. They just want us to do it in the proper way of how they feel it should be done. And so talking with them about, can I have 2 instead of 1 because it's a par 5 and it's 550 yards long, they could understand that. And they said, yes, you can do 2 there. But a lot of it is meeting with them up front, is to understand, okay, what are the setbacks? What can be discussed and what is an absolute, no, you have to do it this way. I always say it's better to have a flat piece in the desert with a pond on it than anything else, because that's going to be the easiest thing to build, because we can create whatever we want to create. It's much better to have a natural site and be able to work off the topography and have rock outcroppings or everything else. But then if you have a nice stream and you want to put a green next to it, you may not be able to, because there may be a 25-foot setback or anything like that. So some of those golf courses, certainly, that were built back in the 20s, I mean, Cypress Point, probably wouldn't be built today. Some of those amazing sites, greens on cliffs or close to water, or even just having grass, manicured grass next to water, is something that, is a challenge nowadays, depending on how that water is identified as state waters or intermittent stream or whatever that is. So it's always a challenge of what you can and cannot do. But a lot of it is just communication with the agencies, is to know what they're going to say and what you can do. And then you route the golf course and shape the golf course according to what they're going to ultimately allow, because it doesn't make any sense to try and fight that, because they will just say no, and you're going to go back to the drawing board anyway to figure out how to not to circumvent it, but how to work within their parameters, but still get the product that you want.
You've also done some great work at Rivermont, just outside of Atlanta. Talk about the work you did there.
Yeah, that was a really fun project. Chris Cupid, the owner, wanted something completely different than what typical golf is in Atlanta. And when I say typical golf, it's typically Bermuda grass and white sand bunkers and played through the pine trees and that type of thing. So he wanted to be the antithesis of Atlanta golf. So we have tall grass and brown sand, and wanted a throwback golf course built like from the 1920s. So very bold contours, a little bit more unusual bunkering, meaning I have really small bunkers and I have really big bunkers, and there's pot bunkers and scruffy grass around them and love grass sticking out of them. The members call it the Tina Turner hair, that is around the bunkers. He wanted to have a lot of contour on the greens. The greens wouldn't be as fast, but have a lot of contour to it. And as we say, quirky good, not quirky bad, so that things that you might see back in 1920, but you wouldn't necessarily see it now with construction. I mean, now their courses are a little bit more bolder than they were, in the maybe 80s and 90s, when they were a little bit softer, and now they're a little bit more aesthetically different in terms of bunker edges and grasses and that type of thing. So as we joked that if everybody was going left, we're going right. If everybody's going up, we're going down. We're going to be the complete opposite of just to be something different than the typical white sand Bermuda grass maintained around the bunkers and typical setup that had been around Atlanta. So, and I think it was last year that golf said we were the top 15 in the state. So that was again another nice accolade for the work that we did there, because it's really, as I said, a throwback. I told the guys, I said, I wanted it to look like you shaped it with a horse and plow, not with a $400,000 bulldozer, because you can make everything so perfect now because the machinery is so good and the talent who's operating it is so good. So I would tell them, no, I want your worst guy and tell him to do a bad job, because we wanted it to look old, as if it's been there a long time and not built in 2006, and everything's smooth and perfect and manicured. We wanted it to be scruffy, to kind of be a throwback. So from that standpoint, it worked out great. But it's a challenge for the guys building it, because they're used to guys telling them, hey, make it really nice. And then I come in there and say, no, do a bad job. And worst job, if the worse you can do, the better I'm going to like it. So it's kind of funny, because they would just look at me like I had three eyes and say, this guy's crazy. What are you saying? And I said, no, it's going to look old. It's going to look rumpled. It's going to look like it was built way back when, like it was found on the land and not created. And that's typically what it was, early part of the century, is that the golf courses were really found on the land because they didn't have the equipment to move, yards and yards of dirt and create all the stuff that it is now. Much like, the Players is on right now, TPC Sawgrass. You probably couldn't build that in 1920, but you could build it when it was built because of the equipment that it would take to excavate all the water corridors out of there and move the dirt and take that swamp, as Pete Dye said, and turn it into what it is.
Mike, talk about some of the other projects that you've had an opportunity to work on over the course of your career, maybe some that you're doing now.
Yeah, I just finished up a remodel of Idle Hour down in Macon, and that was originated in 1912. So I wanted to take it back to that type of heritage of the golf course. So the green shapes are a little bit more angular and straight line, and the bunkers are rumpled to make it look like they've been there 100 years. And again, try to make it feel like you're going back in time, that if you saw it shaped, you'd say, well, this is a really old golf course, and say, no, we did it in 2023, but we wanted to make it look like it was 1923. So that was exciting and embraced by the membership, and it turned out wonderful. So it's always great to have that support, much like at Rivermont with Chris Cupid, that he gave a lot of freedom to design and create, which there's really no substitute for that, to just tell somebody, here's, do whatever you want to do out there. I joked with him that the roles were reversed. I said, typically it's the architect with the crazy ideas and the owner is protecting the membership. I said, in this case, you have the crazy ideas and I'm protecting the membership, saying, you really want to do this? But not much like at Idle Hour, a great group of people to deal with, and really appreciated the work that we did down there. I did the Standard Club also, remodeled that, and same type thing of enhancing what was there and creating a great aesthetic and some of the prettiest par threes around out there. So it's always great when you have the support of the membership, or in Chris's case, individual owner, that you have that confidence that they give to you, or freedom, and say, yes, we trust what you're doing, and go ahead and create what you want to create. So that's really exciting. And certainly when you get to do stuff like that instead of just a standard golf course where they don't want to have that creativity behind it. So those are the projects that are really get the juices flowing and are really exciting to do. And there's also a lot of pressure to it because at Rivermont, we started with the fourth hole, which is the Redan, and that turned out beautiful. And I think I went home that night and I went, now we started with one of the best holes out here. I can't come back tomorrow and just put a dud out there. So there was pressure to keep, okay, the next green has to be equal to that. And then the next green has to be equal to that. And then the next green has to be equal to that. And they all have to be different. They all have to be interesting. But you can't just have one that you say, well, I didn't have any good ideas that day, and all I came up with was a circle with no contour. So in one case, it's a lot of freedom. And in another case, there's a lot of pressure to keep it up and come up with new ideas and different ideas and then try and create that and make a golf course that has 18 unique green sites and holes, but yet still feels like a part of the whole, part of a whole that are all unified together in their motif or their look or how they play, but they're all really good individual golf holes that I like to say that you remember something about each one, whether it's a small pot bunker, whether it's a large bunker, whether it's a big contour in the green, whether it's a small green, whether it's a gigantic green. Something about the golf hole gives you some instant memorability about it. Because I always think it's aggravating to me that if I play a golf course and someone says, hey, that birdie you made on 15 was great, and you have no clue what 15 is. You have to go back to 9 and then count your way to 10 and 11. And okay, I remember 11, but I don't remember anything after that because there's nothing distinguishable about the golf holes. So that's why I always like to create stuff that instantaneously, if someone says, 15 with the pot bunker, people remember it immediately and they don't have to search their brain to say, I don't remember 15 because it looked like, 5 other golf holes on the golf course.
Mike, you're now doing some work with Southwest Greens, and like they say on their website, it's where course design meets creativity. Talk about how you go about now working with them and designing some of the most fun and functional synthetic greens.
Yeah, that's been a learning experience too. But I bring the golf course design background to it. So probably a little bit more than what other companies do if you're just doing a backyard green. So, I'm looking at it from a golf course standpoint and how I would design a green. But it's a learning experience in the fact that artificial turf's different than obviously real turf. So your percentages and how much slope you can have on the greens are a little bit different. All in all, it's pretty much the same. We did a test. I took them to a golf course that I did with bent grass at the Standard Club, and they did testing. And then I took them to Rivermont that has Bermuda grass greens, and they did testing. And then they tested their artificial green, and it turned out that the artificial was pretty much the equivalent of the other two in how it responded to roll and bounce and all the other measurements that they did on those other two different types of grasses. So it's just gotten better and better. I remember being at Clemson, they put in an artificial green, and I think they put concrete underneath it, and we would hit pitching wedge to it, and it would bounce 20 feet up in the air, and thought, well, this is terrible. But it's come a long way now, because now you can hit into the greens, the sand infill greens, if they're not infilled with sand. And when I say that, typically the depth is an inch, not a half an inch or so that some other companies may put in with their turf. But with our research, with Jack Nicklaus being involved with Southwest Greens also, was coming up with how much sand needs to be in the green for the green to react like a true green on a golf course. And I've actually hit balls and spun them backwards on the greens too. So they really do react like a real green both in how they putt and how they receive shots. So it's been fun doing that. Some people will just want a backyard green. Other people want a little mini golf hole. And then I also do putting courses, and doing one right now down at an indoor pickle spot, the Painted Pickle in Atlanta, that we're doing a really cool putting course, a 9-hole putting course in there. So, and again, it's the same type thing. It's, instead of being 400 yards long, I got 20 feet long, but it's still kind of the same type look and feel to it. I'm just doing miniature bunkers and miniature mounds, but the ball rolls just like it would on a golf hole. If you play it out to the right and you play it off that slope and then curve it this way and curve it that way. But it's real craftsmanship. It's really pretty cool, because you're used to dealing in very big spaces and acres, and now we're down there at 1,000 square feet and creating these little golf holes, doing it in such a fashion that it looks like a real golf course. So it's been a great opportunity for me to be involved with them, and I help out with a lot of the franchises around the country that when they need designs, that they would call me and I would provide designs for them. So it just keeps getting better and better, the technology of the turf and what we can do. And I said, if it's the next best thing to having a real green in your backyard, because no one really wants to maintain a real green. They want a green, but they don't want to maintain it. All you have to do in order to keep it looking like they do on a golf course that has a full staff and people with degrees who know what they're doing on how to grow grass. But now the artificial turf has gotten so good that you can have basically the same thing in the backyard without really having to do anything to it.
When someone calls you up and says, "Hey, Michael, I want you to come design a backyard green for me," how do you go about designing something that they're going to love and enjoy, and then it's going to be there, right, theoretically, for decades to come? So it's got to be something special that's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, that ranges too. I mean, some people know exactly what they want, and other ones say, "I know I just want a green, and I have this area." So exactly like golf course design, we look at the area and say, okay, where's the water going? Is this in a low spot that water is going to drain over it, or is it in a high spot that is not going to have water on it? Being a artificial turf, it is carpet made by a carpet company. So water and carpet are not the best of friends. So I always tell people it's better to be in the sunshine than it is to be in the shade. But a lot of times people can't grow grass in their shady area, so they want turf or a putting green. But I said, if it is in a shady area, you typically might have to do a little bit more maintenance to it. And by that, I mean just cleaning it once a year or once every couple of years. But if you're out in the sunshine, once it stops raining, the sun comes out and then dries the carpet out, and it doesn't have as many issues in terms of shade and staying wet that other ones do that are out of sunshine areas. But it works both ways. Sometimes they say, "Hey, I got this area, and how much does this cost?" Or they say, "Hey, I want to spend $10,000. How big a green do I get for that?" So it runs the gamut of all different things on how people approach it. Some know a lot, and some just know that they want a putting green, and then it's our job to educate them and say, well, here's the normal size, or here's how much this would cost as a range, or this would be a good location, or this flatter area is better than this sloping. They might say, "I want it over here, and it's a lot of slope to it." And then I go there and say, well, this area would be better because it's flatter and I don't have to do as much work to make it flat, and would ultimately cost less money than trying to force it over there in an area that has too much slope to it, but maybe that was their first pick that they thought, oh, this would be great for the green. So it's really looking at it like a golf course. It's solving issues. Where's the best place to put it? How's the water going to drain around it? How do we get there? What can I do it by machine, or does it have to do it by hand? Do we have to dig out? Can we put it on top of the ground? Do we have to remove sod? Do we have to bring dirt in? It's all those things of assessing the area and where they want the green to go, and then saying, yes, that's a good spot, or maybe let's think about this spot because it's easier to build and makes more sense once you get there and discuss it with them.
It was so great getting to spend some time with you and Bob Hamrick at the PGA Merchandise Show, learning a little about what you guys do and how you do it together. Talk about marrying your design creativity with Bob and what he's doing there at Southwest Greens.
Oh, it's been great. We kind of bounce ideas off each other. Certainly, he knows the products better than anybody else. So yeah, I'll give him a call and say, well, what about this? And what if I use this turf with this turf? Or how do we do this? And they're always testing new turf. So he'll have me come up there and hit chip shots to them and see how they react and see how the ball bounces and does it stop? Does it release? How about this turf? If we put this much sand in it, it does this. If we put this much sand in it, it does this. So this is a new turf made with this yarn. What do you think about this? So it's great from that standpoint. I mean, as I said, I do a lot of the design work, and you'll definitely have to see us at the show next year, because I said our booth game has to get a lot better with the product that we put in there. So I've already done a design for a new green in the booth and trying to spice it up and make it look fantastic. So that's he's on board with that. So we're going to spend the summer trying to perfect it. That for people who don't know, when you go to the PGA show, you have a set amount of time that you got to set up, and then you have a little time to tear it down. So we're trying to figure out how to make a really cool green in that booth that's easy to set up and easy to take down, but also is, second to none in terms of design, creativity, and showing what we can do in terms of how do we apply carpet and turf and design and all of those things mixed into one instead of just a simple green and simple turf. It might have been a bad thing that he got me involved, but I think it's going to be a good thing that ultimately is going to be really cool when we come up with how we're going to build it. But you'll definitely have to come by next year and see the difference, because I got big plans, and he's on board to help create that.
I can't wait to see it. Michael, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up with the great things that you're out there doing, whether they are doing it on your website or they're doing it on social media?
Yeah, well, they can, visit Southwest Greens, either through that website and see what we're doing. I know Southwest Greens posts stuff for what each franchise is doing sometimes and showing what the products are. If you wanted to see some of it, you could follow the Painted Pickle. They're going to have a lot of stuff coming out with that putting course that we're going to be finishing up next week. And then they're going to be having a lot of people down there and really promoting that. Certainly my website at Michael Riley Design, you can see some of the work that I've done and contact me that way. So that's what you can look at all those areas there for getting information about what we do.
Well, Michael, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and be a part of the show. It's been a lot of fun listening to your stories and getting your insights, and I certainly look forward to seeing what you put together for next year's show. But I hope we get an opportunity between now and then to get you back on, hear about more of the good things that you're working on right now, and maybe pick your brain a little bit more. And Jack Nicklaus was my golf idol, so I've got endless stories I'd love to hear your insights on. But you're fantastic, my friend.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me on. It's as I said, it's an honor. I've seen your the people that you've had on here, and to be a part of that is a great honor for me. And yes, I do have some stories of playing with Jack, so we'll have to get into that, because that was a treat.
I bet it was.
Play with him.
You're the best, my friend. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Michael.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is Michael Riley. Riley is the spelling of his last name. Michael Riley Design is where you can find him online. Southwest Greens. I mean, we all dream about having a green in our backyard. Why wouldn't you want Michael to be the one to design it based on all of the things that he's had an opportunity to be a part of over the course of his design career? I mean, Mr. Nicklaus doesn't go around hiring just anybody. You don't end up winning the awards that Michael has won for his design work out on actual golf courses. Think about being at Reunion and having that course get named Best New Course Design, and then get to have that guy be the guy that designs the green if you have the means to do it in your backyard. And again, creativity and fun, and that's what they talk about on their website. And by on their website, I mean at Southwest Greens, talks about having something that is both creative and fun that you're going to get to enjoy for decades to come. And getting Michael to be a part of it has to be a blast. But then, like you said, looking forward to having him back on the show to kind of pick his brain a little bit more. You guys know how much I love Mr. Nicklaus. To hear about what it's like to actually put a peg in the ground with Mr. Nicklaus has to be both fun and, for me, terrifying to have Mr. Nicklaus playing alongside of you, kind of looking at, someone like me going like, how did I end up with this guy? But Michael had a great run playing on the Florida mini tours. Now, I mean, he was probably very humble when he talked about getting to play out there. But look, when you're playing in the same groups as some of these guys, and look, Dick Mast is a legend. Obviously, Kenny Perry is as well. When you're playing alongside of those guys, that's not for guys that can't play. I'm sure Michael had a lot of game, and then get to kind of pick Mr. Nicklaus's brain and be out there with him has to just be one of the most fun things and a great honor on top of that. So I look forward to hearing more about those stories. But now looking at what he's doing in his course design career, I look forward to seeing more things that he is involved with. And then obviously, like I say, with Southwest Greens as well. He and Bob Hamrick were just so much fun to get to spend some time with at the PGA Merchandise Show. They were so gracious and nice to me to spend some time with me and talk about what they're doing. And like I say, Michael, very gracious with his time to be a part of the show. I look forward to doing it with him again. Maybe we get the honor a little bit later on this summer. All right, well, that's it for this bonus edition of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks again to Jim McLean and Michael Riley for joining me. Scheduled to join me over the next couple of episodes are, remember that streak we have of top instructors in the game that we've got going? Well, it's going to continue with Golf Magazine Top 100 alumni instructor Tom Patry, right? Our resident director of instruction. He'll be back. Current Top 100 instructor, according to Golf Digest, Eric Johnson. He'll be here as well. He is amazing, as you guys know, going all the way back to the very first season of the show. He has been instrumental in what we have done, and I can't thank him enough for his great contributions over the years. Plus, I've also got a couple of wonderful former PGA Tour pros and also great friends of the show. Jay Delsing and Bob Friend Jr. will be back as well, and I hope you'll be here for all of it. I want to thank our friends again over at Trib Live for being such wonderful partners and for hosting this show on their site. For the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find the show by then clicking on the Sports Section tab, and right there on the homepage of the Sports Section, you're going to find the most recent episodes. And you can also find Next on the Tee by typing in podcast.triblive.com. Many of the most recent episodes right there for you as well. You can also find the show pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content. As you guys know, we're out there on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and golfnewsnet.com as well. But my biggest thanks, as it is each and every week, go out to each and every one of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts, barring none. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.